Any questions before we begin the journey?
Is the 200 meters saying that that's where it's going to land?
Yes.
Okay.
Yes. All right, so what do we know?
We know that for under I hat, we know the displacement is 200. And we know for J hat it's 40.
Negative 40.
We know well, is this still on
Ooh, it's gone. You want it to still be on Earth?
Yeah,
That would be
I mean, I don't know the,
I
don't
think
know
it should be.
I don't know the gravitational pull of Venus, but I'm sure it's probably higher.
Venus is 8.9?
The acceleration for I hat is 0, and the acceleration for J hat is negative 9.8.
And by the way, if I put it on a strange planet, then go to the very first page of the test, it'll be at the top what the acceleration to gravity is. Unless one of the questions is, what's the acceleration to gravity on this strange planet? All right.
Do we, well, no, because we have to find the initial of both sides, right?
Yep.
Okay.
All right. So this is the easy stuff. We got the stuff that we can pull straight from the problem as well as the implications from the planet that we're on. So we are going to have this theta as an unknown here. So I have a hypotenuse. I know that's 50. I need to figure out how much is vertical and how much is horizontal.
50 sine theta. Yes. Right.
50 times.
50 times the sine of theta.
Okay.
And then 50 times the cosine theta.
And that's what we're going to put in here. So I have 50 times the cosine of theta here, 50 times the sine of theta there.
And then negative 40 for distance S.
Because it's going to end up 40 meters, the height of the cliff is 40 meters, so it ends up 40 meters below where it started. Because we do have positive.
0 is the top of the curve.
Displacement, yes, it starts at the top. So we're going to solve for time, just like we did before. But we'll have two unknowns, because time's an unknown and theta is an unknown. If there are two unknowns, what is required enough for us to solve it?
Quadratic formula.
Well, that is going to show up, but not yet.
Two equations where you cancel out the term.
If we're lucky, it won't be that nice though. Yeah, you do need two equations. We're going to use the same base equation here. We're going to use delta S is equal to VIT plus 1/2 AT squared. We're going to use this equation, but we're going to plug in the horizontal for one of our equations, or horizontal for one of our equations, and vertical for the other. So I have 200 equals 50 cosine theta times time plus 0. And then I have negative 40 is equal to 50 sine theta times time
Plus
1/2 negative 9.8 times squared. Two equations, two unknowns. It's not the nice algebra level or algebra 1 level, two equations, two unknowns, because one of our unknowns is tied into cosine and one's tied into sine. But sort of along the line that Jacob was saying, we are going to solve for time in one equation, plug that into the other equation, and then that's when it becomes loads of fun. So from the first equation, what does time equal?
200 divided by 50 times the cosine of theta.
Yep.
And then that should be same for the, other one, right?
Yes, and so we're gonna take this value, this time right here, plug it into the second one, and now we have one equation, one unknown. So like negative 40 is equal to 50 sine of theta times 4 over cosine of theta plus, let's go ahead and shorten, minus 4.9 times 4 over cosine of theta, that whole thing squared. I'm going to simplify what I can. Negative 40 is equal to 200 sine of theta over cosine of theta minus, what's 4.9 times 16?
78.4.
Over cosine squared theta. For those who haven't had trig yet, when you're squaring a trig function, you typically put the square right next to the trig name, the cosine. As opposed to cosine squared theta is the same as cosine theta, that whole thing squared. If you don't put the parentheses there, then all you're squaring is just the theta, not the cosine. I trust that you have this down. So the question is, how do we solve it? There are, the way that I solved it for years really gets into a huge mess, but there's a shorter cut to doing it. And it goes,
Got it. I was gonna ask if we use trig identities.
yeah, so what are the trig identities?
I don't remember.
All right, what do we know about trig? As a collective, as a group, not something that every person in here knows, but as a group, what trig stuff do we know?
It's hard.
Okay,
Sine, cosine, theta, or I'm sorry, sine and cosine and tangent.
all right, so
Are you looking for SOHCAHTOA?
I was looking for the relationship between sine, cosine, and tangent.
Oh,
So, tangent is equal to sine over cosine.
Okay, so tangent of theta is equal to sine
okay.
of theta over the cosine of theta.
Which we have in our problem.
And so we can now take part of it at least. So I got tangent right there. What other relationships do we know?
I can't remember what cosine squared theta is in a trig identity, but I know there is a trig identity with that.
Isn't it secant is 1 over cosine theta?
Yep.
So would we have secant squared of 78.4 there?
Yep. So our problem has now become negative 40 equals 200 tangent of theta minus 78.4 secant squared theta. And the rest is obvious, right?
Sure. That's why I'm gonna let you take it away.
Okay. It is beneath you, I'm sure.
Yeah.
Yeah, all right. So, this actually is the simpler way. I will take you down the other path once we do it this way. There's another trig identity dealing with sine and cosine. How are sine and cosine related to each other?
Cotangent?
No, not bringing in other trig functions.
Oh,
Well, sine is, opposite over hypotenuse, and
Okay.
cosine is adjacent over hypotenuse, so they both share.
All right, let's start there then.
denominator.
Let's see, I'm gonna leave that up, I'm getting rid of this stuff. I hope that there's no mistake anywhere in there. All right, so given a triangle here, given A, B, and C, that's a right angle, this is some angle theta. The sine of theta would be B over C, and the cosine of theta is equal to A over C. What is another relationship we have with a triangle, right triangle?
Tangent.
Okay, read my mind.
It's, sorry.
The angles, we know that one is 90 degrees.
Okay,
That's not where you're going, was it?
no, it
I don't
wasn't.
think so.
Relate the sides.
Tangent is, oh,
A squared, B squared equals C squared.
Yeah, that's the one.
Pythagorean? Yeah.
Yes, A squared plus B squared equals C squared. Well, A is just C times cosine of theta. B is just C times sine of theta. So if I plug that in here, this becomes C cos, I'm gonna put a little dot to differentiate the C's there. C cosine of theta squared plus C sine of theta squared is equal to C squared. Since I'm squaring this, this becomes C squared cosine squared theta plus C squared sine squared theta is equal to C squared. I can simplify this.
It would just become C cosine theta plus C sine theta is equal to C.
You can take it further than that.
What?
And how do you get one?
C squared times cos squared plus sin squared equals C squared, and divide both sides by C squared.
Yeah, you divide it by C, or wherever that voice was coming from. You divide by C squared, I get 1 on the right side, and on the left side, we're dividing both these things. We end up with cosine squared theta plus sine squared theta equals
And
1.
that's an identity.
Wait, wouldn't the square also deal with the cosine squared and sine squared?
I'm dividing by C squared, so it cancels out with that.
Alright,
You want to put it, I can put an intermediate step.
nah, it's alright. I'm just gonna trust the process for now.
Well, we all trust the math people aren't lying to us.
Okay, so how does this help us with this?
All right, so I got this tangent over there, and I got the secant squared over here, and over here I've just got cosine and sine, so let's create those things. I'm gonna divide everything by cosine squared. So I have cosine squared theta plus sine squared theta equals 1. By the way, for those who will be taking trig, this is a good thing to know. Divide everything by cosine squared theta. And what I have here is 1 plus sine squared divided by cosine squared, which is tangent squared theta, equals secant squared theta. I can now get this in terms of just tangent of theta. So this becomes negative 40 equals 200 tangent of theta minus 78.4 times
1 plus tangent squared theta.
Yep. Now I distribute. Negative 40 is equal to 200. All right, I'm gonna be writing tangent of theta a bunch here. And the more I write, the more chance I'm gonna make a mistake. So I'm gonna make a little substitution here, just because I don't feel like writing too much. I'm gonna use the letter Z, since we're not using Z for anything. I'm gonna let Z equal tangent of theta. If you want to write out tangent of theta again and again, go for it. So 200 Z minus 78.4 minus 78.4 Z squared.
Theta?
So distributed. Question?
Is there a theta still?
No, it's Z is tangent of theta.
Okay, sorry.
Now, this is a much simpler looking problem. It's a quadratic.
Yeah.
So what we're gonna do is we're gonna move, well, I'm gonna move everything over to the left side. So I have 78.4 z squared. Bring that over. Minus 200 z. Bring that over, and then bringing this over gives me plus 38.4 is equal to 0.
Did you move the negative 78.4 to the left side?
Yes, sir. I added 78.4 to the left side, but there's a negative 40 over here already.
Gotcha, okay.
And I'm not opposed to it, we've got a sign off somewhere around here. So if you notice a mistake, please let me know.
Is that 38.4?
Yes. The 78.4 minus 40. Pretty sure it's 38.4. Alright, now we do the quadratic formula. So z equals 200 plus or minus the square root of
Negative 200.
minus 4 times 78.4 times 38.4 divided by 2 times 78.4.
One of these days I'm gonna remember that equation.
Just need to solve it.
Yeah, you
No,
know the
no.
song.
No, I'm good.
Yeah,
No,
that's
it
fine.
literally
After
helps,
class.
it helps so much, like I wouldn't know it without it.
Yeah, but I don't need it running through my head.
I was about to say, I've got too many songs.
I do find that when I got a song stuck in my head, the theme to Matlock usually clears it.
The theme to what?
The one-
Matlock clears it.
Matlock?
It's catchy enough to remember when I need to, but not catchy enough that it sticks in my head. Right, so someone's about to reveal an answer here. The two answers.
A negative squared should be positive, right?
Yes, it will.
That's weird.
I wrote the negative 200 because it's negative, b is officially negative 200, but I usually don't write the negative sign when I'm just doing this on my own.
I was just asking because my calculator gave it to me as a negative, even though it's a negative squared.
Mine
If you
does
put
that
it in,
too.
if you put it in parentheses, then it won't do that. What kind of calculator do you have?
It's a TI 84 plus.
Funny, yeah, just put it in parentheses next time and it won't do that.
Thank you.
So the answers are.
I always mess up the square root somehow, so.
I don't know if this is right, but I got 1.61. What are the answers?
And at this point, someone else can chime up and go, hey, I got the same thing, or Anna, how could you?
I got it would be acceptable.
I got a different answer, but I'm gonna.
What'd you get?
I got, 2.341, but I'm redoing the order of operation.
Okay,
Okay, and the other number that I got was 0.938.
0.938.
Yeah, and I'm going to redo all of my math.
I got different numbers.
Okay, what'd you get?
So for the positive, it would be 2.34, which is what he had, I
Okay.
believe. And then for the negative, it would be 0.20.
0.20?
Yeah.
Oh, what did I get?
If you want to be rounded, it would be 0.21.
Yeah, I also got 2.34.
Oh.
Is anyone willing to stand up and go, Anna, how could you?
I think we're.
It's alright, I can feel it from everyone anyway.
So yeah, the positive one, I got 2.34,
All right, I'm building a groundswell here.
and then we're trying to find the negative one then.
Do you try, Justin, and get something completely different, or you just trust everyone else?
You're trying to get there.
Okay, sorry, I'm trying to rush it.
There.
For the negative, it's not, it got 0.209114,
Okay,
yeah.
all right.
Nobody else got that, so.
Good. 0.21, you had 0.209.
Oh, yeah.
All right, so I'm gonna go with this set of numbers down here. Again, I have been in classes where there's a huge groundswell for one set of numbers, but it was actually the lone person who was correct. So. But we're gonna go with that,
I can confirm?
same,
Yes.
okay. All right, we haven't actually come up with the answer yet, because we're still trying to find the angle. What we found are two values for z. Or for the Europhiles, z. This is what tangent of theta equals. So tangent of theta equals 2.34. Tangent of theta is equal to 0.21.
No, which one makes sense?
And so we're solving, so theta is equal to the arctan of 2.34.